Hey, everyone. Welcome to Six Path Weeb, your ultimate destination for thrilling anime fanfics. I'm excited to have each and every one of you here as we dive into another captivating what-if scenario. Today's topic, what if Naruko became a rogue shinobi? Part 4. Disclaimer. This content is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used, full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. Anko stood just outside the entrance to what she liked to call her personal little challenge zone. Before her stood the Genin who had successfully passed the first exam. Many of them were bent over, catching their breath after sprinting to the location. However, she quickly noticed that her younger brother's team hardly looked winded. Smirking in their direction, she cleared her throat loudly to get the attention of the gathered Genin. Alright, listen up. You'll be spending 5 days in this forest, and your goal is to obtain both a heaven and an earth scroll. Once you have both, make your way to the tower in the center of the forest. Before you begin, you'll need to sign these consent forms. Once you're done, head over to that booth to receive your scroll, Anko instructed, handing out the forms while waiting for each team to complete the process. At first, many teams hesitated. That is, until a team from Kumo signed without a second thought and collected their scroll. Not wanting to fall behind, the other teams quickly followed suit, signing their forms and heading to the booth. With Team 20. At Gate 20, Naruko and her team were finalizing their strategy for the second phase of the exam. We should locate the nearest team and challenge them before they have time to prepare, Naruko suggested. We need to move quickly and efficiently, staying as unnoticed as possible. Finally, we get to show our real strength, Kaoru said with a grin as she sharpened her katana. It's been a while since we've been able to go all out, Yugito agreed as she stretched. Yeah, the last time we pushed ourselves like this was against Toru-sensei and B-sensei during our final spar before coming here, Naruko added. Before they could say anything else, Anko's voice came through the speaker system. Alright, the second part of the Chunin exams begins now. The gates swung open, and the teams dashed into the forest without hesitation. 5 minutes later. Team 20 stopped on a high tree branch, scanning their surroundings. Who should we go for first? Kaoru asked, keeping a close watch on the area. Yugito, you're our best sensor, it's your call, Naruko said with a confident smile. Returning the smile, Yugito formed the ram seal and focused. After a few moments, she opened her eyes and turned to her teammates. There are 3 teams near us. One is Team 10 from the first exam, another is a team from Kiri, and the third is a group of Kuza ninja heading toward Team 7, who are relatively close to us, she explained. Of all the chakra signatures, the Kuza team has the strongest presence, and something about it feels unsettling. Based on the energy, I think one of them might be Orochimaru. We know Team 7's skill level from the wave mission, and according to Kakashi, they haven't improved much since then. The Kiri team is the closest and seems to be around Team 7's level. Alright, let's approach the Kiri team first. If they don't have the scroll we need, we'll find another team, Naruko decided. Yugito nodded and led the way, with her teammates following closely behind. After a few minutes of traveling through the dense forest, they spotted the Kiri team setting up camp for the night. They might not be expecting company this soon, Kaoru whispered. Let's take a careful approach, Naruko said. We don't want to draw unnecessary attention to ourselves. The team coordinated their approach and swiftly moved toward their targets. They executed their plan with precision, ensuring they retrieved anything useful. Let's check their supplies, Kaoru said as she searched through a pouch. No luck here. Same, Yugito replied. Got one, Naruko announced, holding up a scroll. She opened it and frowned slightly. It's another earth scroll. Looks like we need to keep searching. Alright, Kaoru said. Yugito, are there any other teams nearby, aside from Team 7 and the Kuza team? Give me a second, Yugito replied, forming the ram seal again. After a brief pause, she nodded. There's another Konoha team nearby, one that isn't Team 7, 8, or 10. That's our next stop, Naruko decided. After taking a few moments to clear any signs of their presence, Team 20 moved toward the new target. 30 minutes later. Team 20 perched on a tree branch overlooking a clearing. Below, a team of 3 Genin from Konoha was sitting together. In front of them, a heaven scroll was placed in plain sight. That's either confidence or carelessness, Naruko noted, raising an eyebrow. They're either strong enough to defend it, or they have traps set up to catch anyone who tries to take it. Kaoru nodded. If they're relying on their skills, Let's put them to the test. Naruko smirked and formed a familiar cross-shaped seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A perfect copy of Naruko appeared in a puff of smoke and quickly disappeared into the trees. Let's go, she said. Naruko leapt forward, throwing a set of shuriken at the unsuspecting Konoha Genin. The three Genin reacted just in time, dodging the attack, though they suffered a few minor cuts. Looking up, they barely had time to react before the Kumo team was upon them, weapons drawn. Shaking off their surprise, the Konoha Genin quickly armed themselves and engaged in combat. Naruko clashed with her opponent, exchanging quick strikes. She sidestepped a kunai aimed at her shoulder and countered with a precise strike, forcing her opponent to jump back. Seeing an opening, she swung her ninjato, grazing his arm before he managed to evade completely. Yugito skillfully dodged an incoming kunai and launched a counterattack, delivering a powerful strike to her opponent's shoulder. Kero, meanwhile, overpowered her adversary with swift and precise swordplay, disarming him before he could regain control of the fight. As the battle progressed, Naruko noticed a shadow shift near the scroll. Moments later, she received her clone's memory, revealing that the scroll had been successfully retrieved. Deciding not to prolong the fight, Naruko jumped back to regroup with her teammates. That was an interesting match, she remarked with a slight grin. But we've got what we need. With that, Team 20 disappeared into the trees, leaving behind the surprised Konoha team. Central Tower, 2 hours later. Team 20 had just arrived at the entrance of the tower, skillfully avoiding 5 teams that had attempted to ambush them along the way. Seriously? If those were supposed to be ambushes, then the academy really needs to step up its training, Kero said, clearly unimpressed. Each of the last 3 attempts had included an opponent trying to get too close for comfort, and let's just say their painful retreat ensured they wouldn't be trying it again anytime soon. Let's just head inside before we run into any more surprises, Naruko suggested as she pushed open the door and gestured with a playful bow. Ladies first. Yugito smiled at the small display of chivalry from her girlfriend, while Kero chuckled and patted Naruko on the head. Good girl, she teased. Naruko narrowed her eyes at the comment, letting out a small growl, which only made her teammates burst into laughter. Even Kurama, who had been quiet for a while, seemed to find the situation hilarious. You have to admit, that was funny, Kit. I hope they keep doing it, the fox chuckled from within. Keep it up, and I'll make you relive that memory again, Naruko threatened, smirking when she felt the immediate shift in Kurama's energy. No. Please, anything but that. I promise I'll behave. The fox whined dramatically, curling up in his cage. Shaking off the banter, Naruko turned to her team. Hey, Yugito, Kero, remind me to thank Guy and his student for what they showed us the day before the first exam, she said with a mischievous grin. Her teammates exchanged glances, and a flicker of dread crossed their faces. Naruko-chan. You don't mean the training method, do you? Yugito asked cautiously. Naruko's fox-like grin widened, confirming their worst fears. Both kunoichi shuddered, silently praying that they would never have to experience that technique again. With a shake of her head, Naruko focused back on their surroundings. Her eyes landed on a message written on the wall, and after quickly reading through it, she turned to her team. I think we need to open the scrolls now. Yugito nodded, mirroring Naruko's actions as they carefully unrolled the scrolls at the same time. As soon as they did, Naruko recognized the summoning seal embedded in the parchment. Without hesitation, she dropped her scroll to the ground, and Yugito did the same. The moment the scrolls touched the floor, a cloud of smoke erupted from them. The Kumo Genin tensed, preparing to react to whoever, or whatever, appeared. The second the smoke cleared enough to see a figure inside, they moved to subdue the newcomer in a coordinated attack. Excellent work on completing the second exam so quickly, team. Now, if it's not too much trouble, could you let me go? Came a familiar voice. The smoke fully dissipated, revealing Daru, who was currently caught in an uncomfortable position, Naruko's ninjato resting against his neck, Keru's katana poised at his spine, and Yugito's wakizashi dangerously close to piercing his chest. Oops. Sorry, Daru-sensei, Keru apologized as the team quickly backed off. Daru let out a short chuckle. No harm done. Honestly, I'm proud of how prepared you all were, you didn't take any chances, which is exactly how a shinobi should operate. If I could, I'd promote you all to Chunin right now for that display of teamwork and resourcefulness. His team returned his smile, feeling proud of their efforts. Now, I was sent to explain the message on the wall, Daru continued, glancing at it briefly before sighing. But honestly, it's not that important. Let's just head up to your rooms and wait for the other teams to finish the exam. With that, he led Team 20 toward the upper levels, where rooms had been prepared for the competitors. Naruko and I will take this one. Yugito, Karu, you two can have that one, he instructed. The team nodded in agreement and entered their respective rooms to rest. The next day, Konoha Council Chamber. This is a serious issue, Sarutobi. We must bring the Kyubi Jinchuriki back to the village, Homura Mitokado declared to the assembled council, which consisted of high-ranking civilians and the heads of Konoha's clans. Koharu Yudate nodded in agreement. Homura is right, Sarutobi. No matter what, the Kyubi Jinchuriki must return to the village. Many of the clan heads shared this sentiment. Not only would they regain control over the Kyubi's power, but they would also welcome back the daughter of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. However, while many on the Shinobi Council saw the strategic advantage, the civilian council was less enthusiastic. No. We must not allow that girl to return to this village, snapped Tsuyuki Haruno, the head of the civilian council. Instead, we should send a team to eliminate the creature that took Minato-kun from us. The room grew tense. Everyone was aware of Tsuyuki's obsession with Minato and how she had never truly accepted his relationship with Kushina. It was also well known that she held an intense grudge against Naruko, blaming her for everything related to the Kyubi attack. No, Sarutobi said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Naruko will be brought back and treated with the respect her father wished for her. Tsuyuki opened her mouth to argue but immediately fell silent when the Hokage signaled for the Anbu to reveal themselves. Now, we must determine the best way to bring Naruko back into the village, Sarutobi continued. Hyashi Hyuga furrowed his brows. I do not see why she would refuse to return. Konoha is her home. Sarutobi sighed. The problem is, I believe Kumo may have placed a loyalty seal on her. When I tried to speak to her, she responded with nothing but hostility. The only explanation is that they have manipulated her loyalty. A wave of murmurs passed through the council. Kumo had never been above underhanded tactics, but placing such a seal on a child was unthinkable. We must do whatever it takes to break her free of Kumo's influence, Sarutobi declared. The Shinobi Council nodded in agreement, each considering the best way to bring Naruko home. Danzo Shimura, however, had his own agenda. While he agreed that Naruko should return, he was already calculating ways to ensure that, once she did, she would serve his interests. As the council deliberated, Inoiki Yamanaka suddenly spoke up. Hokage-sama, what if those of us with daughters encourage them to befriend Naruko? If she develops personal ties to the village, she may be more willing to return. Many of the clan heads considered the idea. Not only would it forge a bond with her, but it could also eventually strengthen their family's ties to the Uzumaki and Namikaze bloodlines. Sarutobi nodded. It's a good plan, but it may be complicated since Kumo has already given her a connection, someone close to her. The council scowled. To use personal bonds as a means of control was underhanded, even by Kumo's standards. It doesn't matter, Hyashi said. We'll simply remove her influence, making it appear as an accident. Then, one of our daughters can step in to support Naruko emotionally, strengthening her connection to Konoha. The other clan heads murmured their agreement. Very well, Sarutobi concluded. Once the second stage of the Chunin exams is complete, we will act. The civilian council, while displeased that Naruko would return rather than be eliminated, exchanged silent glances. If she did come back, they would ensure that her life in Konoha was as difficult as possible. 4 days later, Central Tower. Naruko stood among the remaining competitors, her team nearby. The other Jinan teams who had passed included Konoha's Team 7, Team 8, Team 10, and Guy's team. Asuna team had finished shortly after Team 20, an Auto team looked like they had barely survived, and then there was a silver-haired boy from the first exam with his teammates. Naruko's gaze locked onto a particular old man standing before them, her eyes filled with cold determination. The Hokage, accompanied by several Jonin, addressed the crowd. Congratulations on passing the second stage. Due to the number of participants, we will now hold preliminary matches. As the screen displayed the first matchup, the tension in the room grew. Will Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Kato please step forward, the proctor announced. Yugito leaned against the railing. The Uchiha is up first? This should be interesting, she muttered, watching as the match began. Down in the arena. Hayate stepped between the two competitors, briefly studying them before speaking. The first round, Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Kato. Are both of you ready? he asked before pausing for a moment due to a coughing fit. Yes, Yoroi responded in a monotone voice. Yeah, let's get this over with, Sasuke said with a confident smirk. Very well then. The first round. Begin, Hayate declared, swiftly jumping back to avoid getting caught in the battle. Wasting no time, Yoroi launched 2 shuriken at Sasuke while rushing forward with his right hand glowing with chakra. Sasuke quickly pulled out a kunai, deflecting the projectiles and sending them back at his opponent. Yoroi ducked under the returning shuriken and continued his charge, aiming his glowing hand at Sasuke. Reacting swiftly, Sasuke rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike that left a small crater in the floor. Using his kunai to halt his momentum, Sasuke pivoted and used his feet to push Yoroi away. Not bad. I should take this more seriously, Yoroi thought as he stood up, glancing at Sasuke, who was gripping his left shoulder. So the curse mark is still affecting him. This is my chance. Seeing an opportunity, Yoroi charged forward again, his right hand once more coated in chakra. Before Sasuke could react, Yoroi grasped his head. Sasuke's eyes widened as he felt his chakra being drained. He's absorbing my chakra. I need to end this quickly, he thought, barely managing to swat Yoroi's hand away and create distance between them. With Team 20. Sasuke's in for a tough fight. Based on his chakra levels dropping, it seems that Yoroi has the ability to absorb energy from his opponent, Yugito observed while leaning against the railing, her back turned to the match as she spoke to her team. You're right. If Yoroi manages to stay close, the match could be over soon. How much chakra does Sasuke have left? Naruko asked, leaning beside Yugito. Yugito focused for a moment before answering. Not much. If he attempts a ninjutsu, even a simple fireball, he might collapse from chakra exhaustion. But if Yoroi holds onto him for too long, he could pass out from depletion anyway. The Kumo team nodded in agreement, watching the fight closely, except Naruko, who sensed a gaze fixed on her. Following the feeling, she turned and locked eyes with the third Hokage. Judging by his expression, he's planning something. Hokage or not, if he tries to harm Yugito, Karu, or Daru-sensei, he will answer for it. I doubt he would do anything drastic. Even humans aren't that reckless, Kurama's voice echoed in her mind. Kurama, you know as well as I do that people can be unpredictable. Look at what they've done to me in the past. Their fear of the tailed beasts is misplaced. Just because we're different doesn't mean we should be treated as threats, Naruko replied. You make a fair point, kid. But don't worry, if anyone threatens our friends, they will be held accountable, Kurama assured. Meanwhile, the Hokage observed Naruko with a thoughtful expression. What happened to you in Kumo, Naruko? He wondered with concern. No matter what, I will bring you back to your true home in Konoha. His attention returned to the battle just in time to see Sasuke executing a powerful combination attack, finishing the match with his signature Lion's Barrage move. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha, Hayate announced after confirming Yoroi was unconscious. As Kakashi moved toward Sasuke to assist him, he caught Naruko's gaze. He hesitated for a moment, then noticed a small piece of paper thrown toward him. Catching it, he examined the intricate seal drawn on it. Looking back at Naruko for clarification, she subtly gestured toward Sasuke. Understanding her intent, Kakashi nodded and quickly escorted Sasuke away to apply the seal. What was that you gave Kakashi? Daru asked, curious about the brief exchange. Kakashi isn't an expert in sealing techniques, but he's skilled enough to handle a temporary solution. I'd rather not risk Sasuke's newly awakened Sharingan copying any of my abilities. The seal I gave Kakashi is a basic Uzumaki suppression seal. It will lock Sasuke's chakra until removed. Only the person who placed it, the one who created it, or a sealing master trained in Uzumaki techniques can undo it, Naruko explained as she turned toward the screen, which had started beeping again. The names on the board shuffled before selecting the next competitors. Will Shikamaru Nara and Kintsuchi please step forward? Hayate announced after reading the names. The girl from the Auto team, who had previously forced her teammate to withdraw, jumped down, waiting for her opponent. Man, this is such a hassle. Why do I have to fight today? Shikamaru muttered as he reluctantly made his way toward the arena. So, we finally get to see a member of the Nara clan in action. This should be interesting, Karu commented from her spot on the wall. Maybe not as exciting as you think, Naruko replied, arms crossed. The Nara clan is known for their intelligence, but they also have a reputation for being incredibly lazy. Shikamaru is considered a prodigy, even among them, but he's not exactly known for being energetic. He'll win, but don't expect a flashy fight. True to Naruko's words, the match wasn't particularly eventful. Initially, it seemed as though Shikamaru was at a disadvantage when he fell for Kin's Senbon and Genjutsu combination. However, the real surprise came when, despite his disoriented state, he managed to ensnare Kin with his shadow technique. Once she was trapped, the battle was effectively over. With precise control, Shikamaru forced Kin to knock herself out by making her hit her head against the wall behind her. As the unconscious Kin was taken to the infirmary, Shikamaru returned to his team. The screen shuffled through the remaining names again, stopping on the next set of competitors, prompting knowing smirks from the Kumo team. "So, I'm up next, huh?" Karuo said, watching as her opponent, Misumi Tsurugi, jumped down into the arena, ready for battle. She glanced at her mentor. "What do you think, sensei?" "Give it your all," Daru responded with a confident smirk. "It's time to show Konoha that if they want Naruko back, they'll have to face a real challenge." His words caused some of their teammates' eyes to widen in surprise before their expressions turned determined. "Understood," Karuo said before leaping over the railing and landing across from Misumi. His outfit resembled his teammates', a mix of their styles. He wore the same purple bodysuit and mask as Yoroi but had clear glasses like Kabuto. The third match, Misumi Tsurugi vs Karuo. "Fighters, are you ready?" Hayate asked. Both nodded. "Then let the match begin. I suggest you surrender now. Once I use my technique, this match is over," Misumi declared with confidence. "That's not happening," Karuo replied firmly. "In Kumo, we are taught to never give up and to always stand by our comrades." She glanced at her team, who gave her encouraging smiles, strengthening her resolve. "I won't let them down. I will win this match." Misumi frowned and lunged forward with a backhand strike, but his form was sloppy. Karuo blocked it with ease and moved to draw her katana when suddenly, Misumi's arm twisted unnaturally, wrapping around hers, followed by the rest of his body constricting around her, immobilizing her. "I've dislocated every joint in my body," Misumi explained smugly. "Using my chakra, I can manipulate them to wrap around anything. Surrender now, or I'll apply more pressure." Many of the Konoha Genin looked unsettled. They hadn't expected such a strategy. Even the Hokage watched with keen interest. Meanwhile, the Kumo team didn't appear concerned. In fact, they were smirking, something that made the spectators uneasy. Hayate was about to step in when a voice interrupted. "Don't even think about stopping this match," Naruko said confidently, her signature fox-like smirk in place. "It's just getting started." Some of the onlookers turned to her in disbelief. Why wasn't she worried about her teammate? Before anyone could question her, a sudden cry of pain echoed through the arena. Misumi, still wrapped around Karuo, was now yelling as small sparks of electricity flickered around his body. Unable to endure the pain, he quickly released her and stumbled back, struggling to regain control over his movements. "What was that?" Misumi gasped, finding it difficult to move. "Impressive," Kakashi remarked as he observed with his Sharingan. "What do you mean?" Asuma asked, along with several others who were curious. "It's actually quite simple," Kakashi explained. She used her lightning-natured chakra and released it through all of her chakra points at once, creating a small electrical field around her body. Anything in close range would get shocked. He lowered his headband back over his Sharingan, making a mental note. "I'll have to ask her about that technique later." On the battlefield, Karuo smiled at Misumi, who was still trying to regain his composure. "That was a little overwhelming for you, wasn't it?" she said playfully. "We don't let power go to our heads, but that doesn't mean we can't use it to our advantage." She took a firm stance, drawing her katana as Misumi shakily pushed himself to his feet. The moment he managed to stand, Karuo acted. She rushed forward, her katana parallel to the ground. As she closed the distance, she leapt and spun rapidly, creating a whirlwind-like motion. In an instant, she landed a few feet behind Misumi, her blade still poised. A sharp metallic click echoed as she sheathed her sword. "Kumo style, whirlwind dance," she murmured. Misumi, realizing what had happened, faltered as his body trembled from the lingering effects of the lightning. His energy was completely drained, leaving him unable to continue. "Winner, Karuo," Hayate announced after confirming Misumi could no longer fight. He had initially thought the match might favor the Konoha Genin, but Karuo's skill had surprised him. "We'll proceed to the next match after the arena is cleared." After a few minutes, once the space was ready, the screen above began selecting the next two competitors. The Konoha rookies held their breath, hoping to avoid facing the remaining Kumo shinobi. Finally, the names stopped, and a few gasps filled the room. Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. Please step forward. Both kunoichi exchanged glances, slightly surprised to be facing one another so soon. They walked onto the battlefield, standing on opposite ends. Are you both ready? Hayate asked. Once they nodded, he brought his hand down. Begin. Up in the stands, Yugito turned to Naruko. What do you think will happen? Naruko sighed, closing her eyes as she thought. Honestly? This match won't be impressive. From what Kakashi told me, they've barely improved since their academy days. Their taijutsu is basic, and their ninjutsu is nearly non-existent. Sakura struggles even with the basic academy techniques, and Ino has only just started learning her clan's jutsu. If I had to guess, this match will likely end in a draw. Her teammates frowned. Naruko was never one to concentrate so hard on predictions, she usually calculated strategies with ease. Something was off. What's wrong? Daru asked, placing a hand on Naruko's shoulder. Kaoru stood on her other side, concern evident in her expression. Yugito, sensing Naruko's tension, wrapped her arms around Naruko's shoulders in reassurance. Suddenly, Naruko's blue eyes snapped open in realization. So that's what I've been sensing, she muttered. She turned her gaze toward the red-haired boy from the Suna team, Gaara. Are you sure that's him, Kurama? She asked internally. No doubt about it, Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed within her, responded. I recognize that chakra anywhere. That boy is the host of Shukaku, the one-tailed beast. Interesting. I'll try to speak with him after the exams. Be careful, Kurama warned. Shukaku may be unpredictable, but he knows his place among the tailed beasts. When you do talk to Gaara, flare my chakra, it should be enough to prevent him from attacking you outright. Got it, Naruko responded. She exhaled before turning back to her team. Be cautious around the redhead with the gourd. He's like Yugito and me, he's a Jinchuriki, just like us. Her teammates exchanged glances. Of all the things they expected Naruko to say, this revelation was not one of them. Alright, Naruko, Yugito, even though Kurama and Matatabi are stronger than Shukaku, approach him with caution, if you fight him at all. Kaoru, if you end up facing him in the finals, I want you to forfeit. However, if his status as a Jinchuriki hasn't been discovered yet, reveal it. That should cause some issues for Konoha, considering the villagers' views on Jinchuriki, Daru advised, casting a quick glance at the Hokage. The older man frowned at all of them, except for Naruko. With the Hokage, same time. Sarutobi observed the ongoing match with a critical eye, questioning how those two had even graduated from the academy. That's right, the civilian council managed to gain control of the academy, he thought grimly. Turning his attention away from the match, he focused on his favorite blonde, only to notice her eyes closed, deep in concentration. It looked as though she was struggling against something. She must be fighting the loyalty seal. Come on, Naruko, you can break it. Don't let them control you. He thought with both hope and concern. His expression darkened when he saw Akumo Jonin place a hand on Naruko's shoulder while a red-haired kunoichi wrapped her arms around her. They must be trying to reinforce the seal. Come on, Naruko. His hopes soared when Naruko's eyes suddenly snapped open, shock evident on her face as she scanned her surroundings. She broke free. Sarutobi nearly moved to intervene and bring Naruko back to Konoha, but then he saw her speaking with the Kumo shinobi once again. His expression fell. They must have reinforced the seal somehow. Don't worry, Naruko. You will return home soon. Turning his attention back to the fight, he saw that it had ended in a double knockout. Since neither combatant can continue, the fourth match is declared a draw, Hayate announced after checking on both fighters. Kakashi and Asuma swiftly descended to the arena, retrieving their students and placing them back on the observation platform. Kakashi studied his two Jinan, frowning. Neither of them has any real skills. They only perform the bare minimum and never put in extra effort. Why did I pass them during the bell test? He wondered before turning his gaze to the screen as the next match was selected. Shino Aburame vs Kankuro of the Sand, Hayate called. Shino calmly made his way down to the arena, his hands in his pockets, while Kankuro mirrored his composed demeanor. A bug user from the Aburame clan versus a puppeteer. This match could go either way, though the advantage likely belongs to the Aburame, Naruko observed, arms crossed and an intrigued smirk on her face. Why do you think so? Kaoru asked as she watched the battle unfold. Puppeteers are tricky and quick thinkers. It seems like Kankuro has this one wrapped up. Shino can't even get close, Yugito noted with a confident smirk. Don't underestimate an aburame. They're known for their strategic minds just as much as their insects, Daru remarked, mirroring Naruko's stance. True to their analysis, Shino emerged victorious. Though he had taken some hits from Kankuro's poison weapons, his insects neutralized the poison effectively. Initially, Kankuro appeared to have the upper hand, but he failed to notice that Shino had planted a female beetle on him. Soon after, male beetles swarmed to the marked location, slowly draining his chakra. Before he realized it, Kankuro was completely out of energy, his puppet rendered useless, and Shino had a kunai poised at his throat. Told you, Naruko and Daru said in unison. Karu and Yugito pouted at being wrong again and turned to watch the next match selection. When the names appeared, a wave of surprise swept through the spectators, even those from outside Konoha. Rock Lee vs Neji Hyuga. This is going to be interesting, Naruko said with an eager grin. With Team Guy. Might Guy was having an internal crisis, struggling with emotions that would make even the most disciplined shinobi uneasy. Guy-sensei, they're not seriously expecting Neji and Lee to fight each other, are they? Tenten asked, concern clear in her voice. She glanced at her teammates and noticed they were acting differently than usual. Lee was uncharacteristically silent, his normally cheerful expression replaced with pure determination. She knew he saw Neji as his rival, but it seemed that this match meant more to him than mere competition. Neji, on the other hand, wore a smirk filled with quiet confidence. He had been waiting for an opportunity to put Lee in his place, to prove that no matter how hard someone worked, fate could not be changed. Unfortunately, Tenten, they are, Guy answered solemnly. Once the second phase of the exam is over, teams no longer matter. The final stage is a tournament-style competition between all those who passed. Even if two competitors are teammates, siblings, or close friends, they must fight one another. Tenten bit her lip, worry evident in her expression. Before anyone could say more, Neji and Lee jumped over the railing, taking their places in the arena. The tension was palpable as the two teammates locked eyes, each determined to prove their ideals. With Team 20. This has got to be tearing Guy-sensei apart, Naruko muttered. His most hard-working student and his most talented student facing off, no matter who wins, it's going to be painful for him. Before she left Konoha, Guy had introduced her to Lee, a boy he believed would one day succeed him as a taijutsu master. Though they weren't close like siblings, Naruko still saw Lee as an important friend, and she silently vowed to make sure he walked away from this match unharmed. In the arena. The sixth match, Rock Lee vs Neji Hyuga. Are both fighters ready? Hayate asked. Neji and Lee nodded. Very well. Begin. As soon as Hayate leapt back, Lee sprang into action, charging forward with unwavering determination. Neji had already activated his Byakugan and assumed his Juken stance before the match had even started. Neji smoothly deflected Lee's first punch and countered with a Juken strike aimed at his opponent's shoulder. However, Lee used the momentum of his blocked punch to roll away and create some distance. Why do you even try? Fate has already decided the outcome, Neji stated, his gaze cold. I fight because I believe that hard work can surpass natural talent, Lee declared with conviction. No one can defy fate. We are all assigned a path at birth, and we must follow it. You were born with no talent, and that will never change, Neji countered. Lee said nothing but reached into his leg warmers, pulling out two weights. He tossed them to the ground near Neji, and the impact cracked the arena floor, sending up a cloud of dust. Neji's eyes widened slightly. He was training with that much weight? Taking advantage of the distraction, Lee vanished in a burst of speed. Only a few spectators could track his movements, those used to high-speed combat and those with enhanced vision. Wow, Lee's gotten fast. I can barely keep up with him, Kurama, Naruko thought as she followed his movements with her keen eyes. No doubt. He's nowhere near the speed of a tailed beast, but for a human, he's incredibly fast, Kurama admitted. Back in the arena, Neji barely dodged a powerful kick, realizing just in time that if it had landed, it could have seriously injured him. The battle was just beginning. A high-stakes battle. I can't use my speed effectively in this tight space. I need to create some distance if I want to gain the upper hand, thought Lee as he skillfully dodged the swift and precise attacks of the Hyuga clan's taijutsu. His opportunity came when Neji momentarily lost his footing due to the debris scattered by Lee's training weights. Wasting no time, Lee leapt backward, vanishing in a blur of motion. Neji, quick to recover, turned sharply and countered with a Juken-infused palm strike, expertly deflecting the roundhouse kick aimed at his chest. Lee winced as the impact sent a sharp pain through his leg, but his formidable strength allowed him to pivot around Neji's outstretched arm. With a powerful spin, Lee landed a decisive kick to Neji's side, sending the Hyuga prodigy tumbling across the battlefield until he crashed against the far wall. Determined, Neji sprang to his feet and charged forward. Lee met him halfway, and the two engaged in an intense exchange of blows, their respective styles clashing in a dazzling display of skill and precision. Observing the fight. "Something isn't right," Naruko muttered, narrowing her eyes as she closely observed the match. At first glance, everything seemed balanced, a fair fight between two of Konoha's most formidable taijutsu users. However, something about Neji's movements unsettled her. Her sharp eyes caught the subtle adjustments he was making, altering the angle of his juke and strikes ever so slightly. Then it clicked. "Oh no," Naruko thought as she quickly moved toward her spandex-clad friend, drawing curious glances from her teammates and an expectant look from the Hokage. "Guy," she called urgently, catching the attention of the taijutsu master. "You need to make Lee forfeit the match immediately." Guy's eyes widened in surprise. From his perspective, the fight appeared evenly matched, with both fighters pushing each other to their limits. However, he knew Naruko well, she would never suggest something like this without a good reason. "Guy, you have to stop this match. If you don't, Lee's life is in danger," Naruko pressed, her voice carrying a rare edge of fear. Guy's expression turned serious. Naruko wasn't someone who was easily shaken, but there were a few things that truly terrified her, one of them being the loss of someone she cared about. "What's wrong, Naruko? How is Lee in danger?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. Naruko took a deep breath. "Neji is using Juken in a way that's targeting Lee's heart. He's modifying his lighter strikes just enough to avoid suspicion. He's already landed 5 of them. If he lands 2 more, Lee won't be able to fight anymore." Guy's face flashed with shock and concern. The idea that one of his students would go to such lengths against a teammate was difficult to accept. However, he had no time to dwell on it. "Lee!" he called out, capturing the attention of everyone in the arena, including the 2 combatants. "Stop now. Forfeit the match. You have already proven your strength, and that is all that matters." Lee hesitated, confused by his mentor's sudden plea. Unfortunately, that brief moment of distraction gave Neji the perfect opening. Channeling chakra into his palm, Neji struck Lee's chest with precision, sending him hurtling across the arena. Lee crashed against the far wall, the impact leaving him dazed. Determined to end the match, Neji dashed forward at astonishing speed, his palm poised for one final strike. The proctors and other jonin moved to intervene, but before they could act, someone else had already taken the initiative. Naruko appeared in an instant, intercepting Neji's attack with lightning-fast reflexes. In one swift motion, she restrained him, locking his arm behind his back while keeping her ninjato at the ready. A hush fell over the arena as the spectators took in the scene. The intensity in Naruko's gaze sent chills down the spines of those watching. "I've never been fond of the arrogance some display, but to deliberately harm a fellow shinobi, your own teammate, is unacceptable," she stated firmly. Aftermath of the match. The tense silence was broken when Lee suddenly clutched his chest, pain spreading across his features. His agonized cry echoed through the arena, prompting immediate action. The medical team rushed forward while Guy knelt beside his injured student, concern evident on his face. Meanwhile, Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai approached Naruko, hoping to defuse the situation. "Naruko, I understand why you're upset, but let the officials handle this," Kakashi said calmly. "You've already protected Lee, there's no need to escalate things further." Naruko took a deep breath, considering his words before finally releasing Neji, who collapsed onto the ground. Kurenai quickly placed him under a genjutsu to ensure he wouldn't cause any more disruptions. "Hayate, call the match," Kakashi instructed. "Winner, Neji Hyuga," the proctor announced. As Lee was carefully moved onto a stretcher, Yugito wrapped her arms around Naruko's waist, sensing her lingering frustration. "Try not to let this ruin your mood," she said softly. "Besides, the next match is about to begin. What do you think of the upcoming fight?" Naruko exhaled, allowing herself to relax slightly. She knew Yugito was trying to help her refocus, and she appreciated it. "From what we've seen, Guy's team doesn't use ninjutsu at all. Lee is purely a taijutsu specialist, Neji relies entirely on the Hyuga clan's techniques, and Tenten is a weapons expert," Naruko analyzed. "Tamari, on the other hand, seems to specialize in wind-based techniques. Given her fighting style, Tenten is at a severe disadvantage. Tamari's wind control will make it almost impossible for Tenten's weapons to reach her." As the match commenced, The rest of Team 20 listened intently, once again impressed by Naruko's ability to assess the situation so quickly. However, as the preliminaries continued, a sense of unease settled over Naruko. She discreetly glanced toward the Hokage, noticing the calculating look on his face. Something's off, she thought. The way he's observing the Konoha Kunoichi. I have a bad feeling about this. She knew that once the preliminaries were over, something was coming. And whatever it was, she would be ready for it. We will now determine the 8th match, announced Hayate as the screen flashed through the names of the remaining 8 Shinon. Tension filled the air as the screen cycled through the names at a rapid pace. Most of the remaining competitors stood on edge, anticipating their turn to battle, though some remained unfazed. Gaara stood motionless, indifferent to whether he would be chosen next. His confidence was unwavering, as he was certain of his strength. Dosu observed the screen with a calm expression. The remaining contestants include the Ichibi Jinchuriki, the Hyuga heiress, an Akimichi, an Inuzuka, that pale Konoha Jinan, 2 Kumo Jinan, and myself, he calculated. I have a strong chance against the Konoha Jinan, though I wouldn't stand a chance against the Ichibi. The Kumo Jinan don't seem particularly formidable, but their teammate proved they shouldn't be underestimated. Still, they won't be able to counter my sound-based techniques. Kiba leaned against the railing with a self-assured grin, confident in his abilities. None of these guys stand a chance against me. I just hope I don't end up fighting Hinata-chan, he thought, casting a glance at his teammate. Hinata watched the screen with a composed expression. Ever since training under Kurenai, she had adopted a calm and collected demeanor, reflecting the discipline of her clan. It doesn't matter who I face, they will lose, she thought with quiet determination. Especially those from Kumo. They will regret ever crossing my family. Sai stood with his team, his expression unreadable as he analyzed each match. He took mental notes on potential allies or threats, considering who might hold value for his master. The Uchiha was an obvious candidate, as his master had long sought a pure-blooded Uchiha under his influence. The Hyuga, despite his skills, was hindered by the caged bird seal, preventing the ability to pass on the Byakugan freely. So far, few here would be of interest to Danzo-sama, though the Uchiha and Hyuga show promise. The Kumo team might also prove valuable, given their teammates' impressive performance. Choji, unlike his fellow Jinan, remained blissfully unconcerned with the tension around him. Instead, his focus remained solely on his snack, savoring each bite of his chips. Yugito kept her gaze on the screen but also paid close attention to the Konoha Kunoichi. Like Naruko, she had noticed the brief but meaningful glances the elder Kage sent toward the young Kunoichi of his village. There was a calculating look in his eyes, one that seemed to be weighing possibilities. I won't let anyone interfere with Naruko, she thought, feeling a flicker of possessiveness. Meanwhile, Naruko had her eyes closed in deep thought, formulating her strategy for the upcoming match. I could easily overpower any of the remaining competitors if I used your chakra, Kurama, she mused, communicating with her inner tenant. But that would cause too much trouble later on. If I simply incapacitate my opponent, it would send a clear message that my team and I aren't to be underestimated, but that might make the Hokage uneasy. I need to be careful. A deep voice rumbled in her mind. Why are you so concerned with what the old man thinks? I thought you wanted him to stop interfering. A decisive display of strength would make it clear that you are beyond his control. True, Kurama, but remember what Granny Mito's letter said, Naruko responded. The vault containing my clan's knowledge was hidden by my father's clan. If I want to find it, I need access to the Namikaze compound. Only the Hokage knows its location, and if my plan is to work, I need him to believe he can still persuade me to stay in Konoha. Ah, I see, Kurama replied, his tone thoughtful. If your plan succeeds, you'll gain access to the knowledge of both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans. That would be quite the accomplishment. Before Naruko could respond, the screen suddenly beeped, signaling that the next match had been decided. Will Kiba Inuzuka and Yugito Ni please step forward for the 8th match? Hayate called out, glancing away from the screen to look at the remaining contestants. Kiba grinned, eager for the fight. Confident in his abilities, he jumped over the railing, Akamaru following close behind. Unbeknownst to him, a faint scent lingered in the air, catching the attention of a certain blonde-haired Kunoichi. With Team 20. Naruko turned to wish Yugito luck with a supportive gesture, but as she moved closer, a strange scent reached her nose. Instinctively, she took a quick sniff, her expression shifting as an intense protectiveness took hold of her. Without hesitation, she pulled Yugito close, her grip firm. What's wrong, Naruko-chan? Yugito asked, moments before the scent hit her senses as well. Having been taught about pheromones and their effects by Matatabi at a young age, she recognized the origin of the scent immediately. It carried no warmth or sincerity, just arrogance. Fortunately, she had long since built a resistance to such things, especially considering the intensity of the energy Naruko emitted during their training. Though the scent itself didn't affect her, she couldn't deny the thrill that ran down her spine at her teammates' protectiveness. "Yugito-chan, don't let him lay a hand on you," Naruko said, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable intensity. "If he tries anything, I won't be able to hold back." Yugito smiled reassuringly, brushing a hand over Naruko's before stepping forward. "Don't worry," she said confidently. "He won't even get close." With that, she leapt over the railing, landing gracefully in front of Hayate. Kiba stood across from her, an arrogant smirk playing on his face, his eyes assessing her with an unwelcome boldness. "Matatabi, if I don't finish this in under 5 minutes, I'll activate the cloak and try one of your techniques," Yugito thought to her partner. "Agreed, kitten. He thinks he can make us submit? Let's show him otherwise." Hayate looked between them before raising his hand. "The 8th match, Kiba Inuzuka vs Yugito Ni. Are you both ready?" Kiba nodded confidently, while Yugito met Hayate's gaze with a sharp, unwavering look. The proctor swallowed, silently reminding himself never to get on her bad side. "Begin," he called, quickly stepping back. Kiba grinned. "You know, someone like you shouldn't waste time with a nobody like her," he said, nodding toward Naruko. "I'm the real alpha here." Yugito narrowed her eyes. Is he seriously trying to assert dominance like this? Naruko-chan radiates more power in her sleep than this. Without hesitation, she launched forward. Before Kiba could react, she spun midair and landed a precise, forceful heel strike to his face. He barely had time to register what happened before collapsing to the ground, unconscious. Akamaru stood frozen in shock, looking between his fallen partner and Yugito. He could feel the commanding presence she exuded and knew instinctively that she was not someone to challenge. Hayate blinked, stunned at how quickly the fight had ended. Defeating a clan heir so effortlessly. This team is not to be underestimated. If Naruko is anything like her teammates, she could be unstoppable. After confirming that Kiba was indeed knocked out, Hayate raised his hand. "Winner, Yugito Ni." As the medics arrived to carry Kiba away, Yugito returned to her team. She was immediately met with a victorious grin from Naruko, who pulled her into a brief but supportive embrace. "That was impressive," Kaoru said, smirking as she crossed her arms. "You really put him in his place." Yugito chuckled, locking eyes with Naruko for a moment before Kaoru cleared her throat. "All right, that's enough staring. We don't need the two of you making a scene in front of everyone." Several of the rookie competitors blushed at her comment, while Sasuke merely scowled, frustrated that he had yet to activate his Sharingan. Kakashi, meanwhile, had already pulled out a notepad, jotting down notes with an amused glint in his eye. "With the Hokage." Sarutobi observed the match from above, his expression unreadable. "She is more skilled than I anticipated. Removing her will be more complicated than expected. But nothing my Anbu can't handle." His gaze flickered toward Naruko. "Soon, Naruko, you'll return to your rightful place here in Konoha. And nothing will stand in my way." Back in the arena. The 9th match will be between Dosu Kinuta and Gaara of the Desert, Hayate announced as the two fighters stepped forward. Gaara calmly leapt over the railing, while Dosu moved with sharp focus. The moment the match began, Dosu charged forward, pulling back his sleeve to reveal his melody arm, ready to strike. However, before he could even attack, Gaara's sand shot forward, trapping him instantly in a swirling cocoon. "Mother wants your blood," Gaara murmured in a monotone voice, raising his hand. Without hesitation, he clenched his fist. The sand tightened around Dosu, eliminating him in an instant. With Team 20. "So that's the power of Shukaku," Naruko observed, watching Gaara's brutal efficiency. "I have a feeling he's only tapping into a fraction of what that sand can really do." "You're right, Kit," Kurama's voice rumbled in her mind. "When the sage and his sons granted us power, we each specialized in different abilities. Shukaku chose sand manipulation, crafting countless techniques with it. What you're seeing now barely scratches the surface of what he's capable of." Naruko hummed in thought as the match concluded and the screen displayed the next competitors. In the arena. "Will Hinata Hyuga and Choji Akimichi please step forward for the 10th match?" Hayate called. Hinata jumped down gracefully, confidence radiating from her stance. Choji, on the other hand, hesitated before Asuma gave him an encouraging nudge, along with the promise of barbecue. Reluctantly, He made his way down. Fighters ready? Hayate asked. Receiving nods from both, he signaled the start of the match. Begin. Hinata wasted no time, dashing forward with swift, precise strikes. Choji did his best to dodge, but several of her Juken attacks found their mark, particularly on his legs. She stepped back, watching as Choji struggled to maintain his stance. You might as well forfeit, she said coolly. You're no match for a Hyuga, especially not the heiress. Choji hesitated, glancing at Asuma. He didn't want to disappoint his sensei, but the pain in his legs told him continuing would be unwise. After a moment, he sighed and raised his hand. Proctor, I forfeit. Hinata's smirk widened, clearly pleased with her victory. What a nuisance, said Yugito as she observed the two Konoha ninja walking back to their respective teams. She couldn't help but notice the scowl on Kurenai's face as she looked at her only female student. I guess that's why she doesn't mind leaving her team behind. The only truly disciplined one is the Aburame, while his teammates carry themselves with too much arrogance. So that's the heiress of the Hyuga clan? She doesn't seem very committed to teamwork if that's how she treats her own allies, said Naruko, glancing at the only remaining competitor besides herself. Something about him feels off. Since they are the last two competitors left, will Naruko Uzumaki and Sai please come down for the final match? Announced Hayate, suppressing a cough. Sai silently jumped over the railing, landing before the proctor with his usual unreadable expression. Meanwhile, Naruko remained with her team, her annoyance evident. Seriously, how many times do I have to correct them before they use my real name? She thought, her eyebrow twitching. Naruko Uzumaki, please come down for your match, Hayate tried again, only making the blonde Kunoichi's irritation more obvious. How many times do I have to say it before people start listening? It's Naruko Namikaze, she exclaimed, jumping down to the arena floor with a frustrated look. Hayate glanced at the Hokage with surprise, noting the contradiction. Sarutobi had personally informed him that her name was Uzumaki and that she had a connection to his late teacher. Shaking off his confusion, he turned back to the two competitors. Very well, the final match, Naruko Namikaze vs. Sai. Are you both ready? He received a nod from Naruko, while Sai remained still. Begin. Hayate announced, swiftly stepping back as Sai lunged forward, a brush and scroll in his hands. Naruko immediately stepped back, analyzing her opponent's tactics. A brush and a plain scroll? What kind of technique could he use with those? Her question was answered as an ink-crafted lion charged toward her. Ink? So he must infuse his chakra into his drawings to bring them to life and control them as weapons. That means he's a long-range fighter who avoids direct combat. But with that tanto on his back, he's probably skilled enough to defend himself up close if necessary, she analyzed while dodging the lion, followed by a newly drawn tiger. If only I knew some water jutsu. That would make this so much easier. Of all the elements I have an affinity for, why does it have to be the one I don't? Naruko thought as she continued evading the multiplying ink creatures. Inside Sai's mind. Her skills don't seem as refined as some expected. It looks like Orochimaru's spy had an accurate report on her abilities, Sai thought as he continued to bombard Naruko with ink beasts. Still, if my master wants her under his control, so be it. With that thought, he created another ink lion while discreetly adding small strokes at the bottom of his scroll, forming a hidden seal. Unfortunately for him, Naruko noticed his subtle movements. What was that he just drew? She wondered while dodging the ink creatures. Judging by the size and placement, it's likely some kind of seal. It's probably not a storage seal. An explosive seal is a possibility if he plans to integrate it with his creatures. I'll have to close the distance and figure out his strategy. Drawing her ninjato, Naruko infused it with wind chakra, causing the fox-shaped guard to glow as a small whirlwind formed around the blade. Holding her arm parallel to the ground, she leapt forward and spun at high speed. Cloud style, tornado blade storm. She called out as a whirlwind engulfed her, slicing through the ink creatures with ease. For a brief moment, the battlefield was obscured by a shower of ink. Using the distraction to her advantage, Naruko moved with such speed that even a seasoned jounin would have been envious. Positioning herself behind Sai, she quickly examined the seal he had drawn and noticed something concerning: a seal chain. A seal chain? Those are only used for a few things. Explosives, barriers, preservation, and mind control. Though disturbed by the realization, she kept her expression neutral. So that's his true objective. If he succeeds, the Hokage will have another problem on his hands. Deciding to put an end to the match, she swiftly formed a series of hand signs, ones her team recognized immediately. With Team 20, So she's getting serious already, Kaoru observed, keeping a subtle eye on the Hokage. Something must have set her off if she's resorting to ninjutsu this soon. I bet it has something to do with the Hokage, Yugito replied, catching the attention of her teammate and sensei. You wouldn't notice unless you knew what to look for, but Naruko's eyes hardened for a split second before she masked her emotions again. Whatever it was, it likely involves the Hokage. That's the only reason she'd use her black lightning this early. She's planning to shake things up and make Konoha rethink their stance on her. If they realize she possesses the black lightning, they'll understand her significance to Kumo and hesitate before making any rash decisions. That should buy us some time to strategize. You're right, Yugito. Naruko values information and the element of surprise, Daru said, watching her closely. She wouldn't reveal something this important unless she had a plan in place. As they observed, Naruko continued forming her hand signs, ready to turn the tide of the battle. Lightning style, black lightning strike, Naruko declared as black sparks of lightning crackled around her arm. Raising it with precision, she unleashed a bolt of lightning, darker than an Uchiha's eyes, toward a stunned Sai at speeds rivaling that of a cage. With the Hokage. Black lightning? Has Kumo truly entrusted her with one of their most prized techniques? This complicates matters. If Naruko wields black lightning, Kumo will not part with her easily. We must wait for the right opportunity to bring her back where she belongs. But that girl who constantly follows her around. She will not be an obstacle for long. Patience, Naruko. Soon, you will be home. With Kakashi. Black lightning and the lightning style armor? With both techniques in her arsenal, Kumo will never let her go. If the Hokage makes any rash decisions, this could escalate into an all-out war between Kumo and Konoha. And if that happens, I already know where my loyalties lie, Kakashi thought, casting a small, knowing smile in Naruko's direction. In the arena. Black lightning. That should be impossible. Sai thought, his usually emotionless face betraying something unfamiliar, fear. He had never felt such fear, not even during his training under Danzo. He had survived countless dangerous missions that many shinobi his age would never return from. Yet now, staring at the oncoming lightning, he knew, this time, there was no escape. All he could do was watch as the jutsu streaked toward him, unwavering in its speed and accuracy. Forgive me, Danzo-sama. I failed my mission, was his final thought before the attack struck his chest. A silent scream formed on his lips as the lightning coursed through his body. It moved with precision, targeting his heart and bringing everything to a swift, decisive end. Naruko lowered her hand, canceling the jutsu. The lifeless body dropped to its knees before collapsing forward onto the arena floor. There was no blood, the sheer intensity of the lightning had cauterized the wound instantly. The stadium fell into complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. They were too stunned by what they had just witnessed. Sasuke stared in disbelief, his mind flashing back to the battle on the bridge. He had thought he understood the power Naruko possessed back then, but now he realized, he had only seen a fraction of it. With a single jutsu, she had done something that should have been impossible. He had read about that technique in the academy. It was only classified as a C-rank jutsu, meant to stun and lightly burn a target. And yet, Naruko had just turned it into something far more destructive. Am I really this far behind her? He thought, his fists clenching at his sides as he watched her calmly walk back toward her team, leaving the battlefield behind. Sakura and Ino, meanwhile, were frozen in place, their minds replaying memories from the mission in the Land of Waves. They had both seen Naruko in action before, but witnessing her power again only brought back the fear they had tried so hard to forget. Their legs gave out beneath them as their overwhelmed minds shut down, causing them to slump against the wall in unconsciousness. Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy, and Anko, however, were quietly celebrating Naruko's victory. The fact that she had defeated an opponent so efficiently only deepened their pride in her. She understood the reality of being a shinobi and had the strength to make difficult decisions when necessary. With Orochimaru could barely contain his excitement. How did my spies fail to report on such an incredible talent? He thought, his golden eyes narrowing with interest. His original target had been Sasuke, but now, he saw another possibility. I must mark her before Konoha gets in my way. If even Sarutobi-sensei is this interested in her, I will have to proceed carefully. But once my plans are set in motion, there will be nothing stopping me from claiming her power for myself. With the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen had seen many things in his long life. He had fought in wars, lost comrades, and made difficult decisions. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of Naruko, Someone he viewed as a granddaughter, taking down an opponent so effortlessly, without hesitation. Has Kumo truly influenced her so much that she no longer feels remorse for taking a life? Or has she truly severed her ties with us? He clenched his fists. No. I refuse to believe that. Deep down, she must be struggling with the choices she has made. I will not give up on her. No matter what it takes, I will bring her home. The match results. Winner, Naruko Namikaze, announced Hayate, still reeling from what he had just witnessed. She used a C-rank technique with the force of an A-rank assassination jutsu. But those sword skills, she moves just like Kushina-sensei. And her resemblance to the fourth Hokage is undeniable. If my suspicions are correct, she must be their daughter. He cast a glance at Kakashi, making a mental note to speak with him later. If anyone had answers, it would be him. For now, he shook off his thoughts as Sarutobi stepped forward. The remaining competitors gathered before him, awaiting their next instructions. Congratulations to all of you for making it this far in the exams, the Hokage said. Before the final round, each of you will draw a number to determine your matchups. Anko stepped forward with a box and approached Naruko first. One by one, the Genin took their numbers and announced them aloud. Match order. First match, Naruko Namikaze vs Neji Hyuga. Second match, Sasuke Uchiha vs Shino Aburame. Third match, Kairu vs Gaara of the Desert. Fourth match, Shikamaru Nara vs Tamari of the Desert. Fifth match, Yugito Ni vs Hinata Hyuga. Sarutobi nodded. You all have 1 month to prepare for the final round. Train well, and make the most of your time. You will receive further instructions on where to meet as the finals approach. You are dismissed. As the Genin dispersed with their teams and senseis, Sarutobi turned toward the exit, his mind already formulating a plan. The sooner we act, the sooner Naruko will be back where she belongs. However, he was unaware that a certain blonde was already 1 step ahead, quietly following him. Whatever you're planning, old man. The boss will know soon enough. Hey everyone, we've reached the conclusion of this epic fanfic video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Thanks for watching. 6 Path Weeb.